The night sky over Nevada's desert was crystal clear, with thousands of stars twinkling like diamonds against the black canvas above. Most people were fast asleep in their warm beds, completely unaware that something extraordinary was about to happen in the cold, empty wilderness. High above the Earth's atmosphere, a strange vessel moved silently through space. It wasn't made of metal or steel like human spacecraft. Instead, it looked almost alive, with a smooth, curved surface that seemed to pulse with a soft blue light. Inside this living ship, being unlike anything on Earth, was carefully steering through the darkness. Her name was Zarathal, and she was what her people called a Queen Mother. She stood about 7 feet tall, with skin that seemed to glow from within, like moonlight shining through frosted glass. Her body was elegant and graceful, with 6 arms that moved with perfect coordination. Along her spine, beautiful crystal formations caught and reflected light, making her look like a living work of art. Zarathal had been traveling through space for many days, on a mission that was very important to her people. They had been watching Earth from far away for many years, curious about the humans who lived there. Her job was to fly around the planet, taking measurements and observations, but never making contact. Her people believed in watching quietly from a distance, never interfering with other worlds, as she guided her bioship through the cold emptiness of space. Zarathal thought about her home world Kepler 442b. It was a warm, beautiful place, covered in vast forests and sparkling oceans. The air was thick and comfortable, filled with the sweet scent of methane blooms that her people needed to breathe. Most importantly, it was where her children were waiting for her return. Like all queen mothers, Zarathal was responsible for caring for hundreds of young ones. They depended on her for food, protection, and guidance. She had been away from them for weeks now, and her heart ached with the need to return home. This was supposed to be her final orbit around Earth before heading back to her family. Everything was going perfectly until it wasn't. Without warning, space around her ship began to shimmer and distort. A massive solar flare had erupted from the sun, sending waves of powerful energy racing across the solar system. The invisible storm hit her bioship like a giant hammer, causing all of her navigation systems to spark and fail. Her ship, which had been responding to her thoughts and feelings like a loyal pet, suddenly became confused and frightened. The living vessel began to shake and spin, its bioluminescent patches flickering wildly as it struggled to maintain control. Zarathal pressed her hands against the soft, warm walls of her ship, trying to calm it down with her mind. "Easy, my friend," she whispered in her musical language, her voice filled with concern. "We can get through this together." But the solar storm was too powerful. Her ship's quantum navigation system, which used the natural magnetic fields of space to find its way, was completely scrambled. The bioship began to fall toward Earth. Pulled by the planet's gravity like a stone dropping into a pond, Zarathal worked frantically at her controls, which weren't buttons or switches, but rather soft, responsive patches that reacted to her touch. She tried every trick she knew, every emergency procedure her people had taught her, but nothing worked. The ship was dying, and she could feel its pain as if it were her own. Through the transparent walls of her vessel, she could see Earth, growing larger and larger. The blue and white marble that had looked so peaceful from far away now filled her entire view. She was falling toward a dark patch of land, covered in what looked like rough, rocky terrain. The desert below was unlike anything on her homeworld. Instead of lush forests and warm oceans, she saw endless stretches of sand and stone, broken only by strange, twisted plants that looked like they were reaching toward the sky in desperation. The temperature readings on her instruments showed numbers that made her shiver with fear. It was incredibly cold down there, much colder than any place on her planet. As her ship entered Earth's atmosphere, it began to burn and shake violently. The living vessel was screaming now, a sound that only Zarathal could hear in her mind. She knew her faithful companion was dying, and there was nothing she could do to save it. The crash came suddenly and violently. Her bioship hit the desert floor with tremendous force, sending sand and rocks flying in all directions. The sound echoed across the empty landscape like thunder, but there was no one around to hear it. The impact was so powerful that it created a small crater in the ground, and the ship's bioluminescent glow began to fade as life left its organic systems. Zarathal was thrown around inside her dying vessel, her crystalline exoskeleton cracking. Under the tremendous pressure, pain shot through her body as her internal organs, which normally glowed with soft light, began to dim. Purple blood, unlike anything on Earth, began to seep from her wounds and freeze almost instantly in the bitter, cold air. Somehow, she managed to crawl from the wreckage of her ship. Each movement sent waves of agony through her body, but she forced herself to keep going. Behind her, the bioship that had been her home and companion for so many years was taking its final breaths. The warm, comforting glow that had surrounded her during the long journey was fading away, leaving her alone in the cold darkness. As she looked around at the alien landscape, Zarathal realized just how desperate her situation had become. She was stranded on a world that was completely hostile to her kind, with no way to contact her people for help. The cold was already seeping into her bones. She could feel her body temperature dropping dangerously low. In the distance, she could see strange, spiky plants silhouetted against the star-filled sky. The silence was complete and terrifying, broken only by the sound of wind whistling through the rocks. This was nothing like the warm, humid world where she belonged. This was a place of death and emptiness, and she was trapped here, possibly forever. But Zarathal was a queen mother, and queen mothers didn't give up easily. Somewhere out there, her children were waiting for her to come home. She had to survive, no matter what it took. Gathering what little strength she had left, she began to crawl across the frozen sand, leaving a trail of purple blood behind her as she searched for shelter in the vast, unforgiving desert. 3 days had passed since the crash, and Zarathal was slowly dying in the desert. The Queen Mother had never experienced anything like this cold, dry environment that seemed determined to drain every bit of life from her body. Back on her home world, the air was thick and warm, filled with moisture that her people needed to survive. Here, every breath felt like swallowing tiny needles of ice. She had been wandering through the endless sand and rocks, looking for anything that might help her survive. Her 6 arms, which had once moved with perfect grace, now trembled with weakness. The beautiful crystal formations along her spine had lost their shine, looking dull and lifeless like old glass. Most troubling of all, the soft blue glow that had always emanated from her skin was growing dimmer by the hour. On her home planet, Tarathel's body naturally maintained a temperature of 150 degrees Fahrenheit. It was this warmth that allowed her organs to function properly and kept her bioluminescent patches glowing with healthy light. But here in the Nevada desert, where the temperature had dropped to 20 degrees below zero, her body was fighting a losing battle against the cold. The purple blood from her wounds had long since frozen, creating strange crystalline patterns on her skin that cracked and broke with every movement. Her internal heating system, which had worked perfectly for over 2 centuries, was failing. She could feel her life force slowly ebbing away, like water leaking from a broken container. What made everything worse was the complete silence. On Kepler 440b, the air was always filled with the gentle songs of her people, the rustle of methane-rich breezes through the crystal forests, and the happy chatter of her children. Here, there was nothing but the howling wind and the crunch of her feet on the frozen ground. Zarathel tried desperately to use her telepathic abilities to reach out to her people. She closed her eyes and concentrated with all her remaining strength, sending her thoughts racing through space toward her distant home. But something was wrong. The signals that should have traveled instantly across the galaxy were being blocked by Earth's magnetic field. It was like trying to shout through a thick wall. Her calls for help simply bounced back to her, unheard, as she stumbled through the desert. Her mind began to wander to her children back home. There was little Veltar, who was just learning to fly and always asked endless questions about the stars. There was wise Cathara, who loved to solve puzzles and had recently discovered she could communicate with the crystal trees. And there were so many others, each one precious and unique, all depending on her to return home safely. The Queen Mother species had evolved over millions of years to be nurturing and protective. Her entire existence revolved around caring for her young ones, teaching them about the universe and keeping them safe from harm. The thought that she might never see them again was almost more painful than the physical agony she was experiencing. On the second day of her wandering, Zerothel had found a small cave among some rocks. She had crawled inside, hoping to escape. The worst of the cold, but the shelter provided little relief. The stone walls seemed to absorb what little heat her body could still produce. Leaving her feeling even more frozen than before, she tried to remember the emergency survival techniques her people had taught her, but they were all designed for the warm, humid environment of her home world. Nothing in her centuries of experience had prepared her for this harsh, alien landscape that seemed designed to kill any form of life that didn't belong there. Her coordination was getting worse with each passing hour. The Queen Mother's species was naturally graceful, able to use all 6 arms simultaneously to perform complex tasks. But now, she found herself stumbling and falling, unable to control her movements properly. Her normally sharp senses were becoming clouded, making it hard to think clearly or make good decisions. By the 3rd day, Zerothel knew she was in serious trouble. Her body had begun to shut down non-essential systems to conserve energy. Bioluminescent patches that had always glowed along her arms and torso were now barely visible, like dying embers in a fireplace. Her natural healing abilities, which would normally have repaired her crash injuries within hours, had completely stopped working. She found herself moving slower and slower, each step becoming a tremendous effort. The desert stretched endlessly in all directions, offering no hope of rescue or shelter. Strange plants with sharp spines dotted the landscape, looking like twisted sculptures against the gray sky. They were nothing like the soft, glowing vegetation of her homeworld. As the sun began to set on her 3rd day of wandering, Zerothel collapsed near a cluster of tall, spiky plants that humans called Joshua trees. She had reached the end of her strength, and her body was preparing to enter a state that her people called the deep sleep, a last resort survival mechanism that was rarely used and even more rarely survived. Her body temperature was dropping 2 critical levels, and she could feel her consciousness beginning to fade. In her delirium, she imagined she could hear her children calling for her, their voices carried on the desert wind. She wanted to answer them, to tell them she was trying to come home, but she no longer had the strength to speak. The Queen Mother's breathing became shallow and slow as her body began to shut down. Her 6 arms curled around her torso in a protective position, and her crystalline spine formations dimmed to almost nothing. She was entering the deep sleep, and if no help came soon, she would never wake up again, as consciousness slipped away. Zerethal's last thoughts were of her children and a desperate hope that somehow, somewhere, someone might find her before it was too late. Dawn was breaking over the Nevada desert on the 4th day, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and orange. The harsh landscape looked almost peaceful in the early morning light, with long shadows stretching across the sand dunes and rocky outcrops. But hidden among the Joshua trees, a dying alien Queen Mother lay motionless, her body barely clinging to life. Dr. Luna Rodriguez had been driving through the desert for hours, following a trail that most people would consider impossible to navigate. Her modified Jeep bounced and jolted over the rough terrain, but she was used to this kind of adventure. At 34 years old, Luna had spent most of her career studying the possibility of life beyond Earth, working for the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence Project. Luna wasn't supposed to be out here alone. Her supervisors at the research facility would have been furious if they knew she was conducting unauthorized surveys in the middle of nowhere. But 3 nights ago, amateur radio operators in the area had reported strange electromagnetic readings, and Luna couldn't resist investigating on her own. She had always been the curious type, the kind of person who asked too many questions and never accepted simple answers. As a child, she would spend hours staring at the stars, wondering if someone out there was looking back at her. Now, as a trained scientist, she had the tools and knowledge to search for real answers. Her Jeep was packed with specialized equipment that could detect unusual energy signatures and electromagnetic disturbances. Most of the time, these readings turned out to be nothing more than old military equipment or natural phenomena. But something about the recent reports felt different to Luna, more promising than the usual false alarms. As she drove deeper into the desert, her instruments began to pick up something unusual. The readings were unlike anything she had ever seen before, a faint but consistent bioelectric signature that seemed to pulse with an almost organic rhythm. Luna's heart began to race with excitement as she realized she might have found something truly extraordinary following the signal. She guided her jeep through a maze of rocks and desert plants, stopping frequently to take new readings and adjust her course. The signature was getting stronger, leading her toward a cluster of Joshua trees that stood like ancient sentinels against the morning sky. Luna packed her jeep and grabbed her handheld scanner, walking slowly toward the source of the mysterious readings. The device was beeping more rapidly now, indicating she was getting close to whatever was generating the signal. She moved carefully through the scattered rocks and thorny bushes, her eyes scanning the ground for any sign of what might be causing the readings. That's when she saw it, a shape lying motionless among the twisted desert plants. At first glance, Luna thought it might be an injured hiker who had gotten lost in the wilderness. Desert rescues were unfortunately common in this area, and her first instinct was to help. But as she got closer, she realized this was something completely different. The figure was tall and graceful, with limbs that seemed too long and elegant to be human. Its skin had a translucent quality, like looking through frosted glass, and Luna could see what appeared to be veins of light running beneath the surface. Most shocking of all, the being had 6 arms, each one perfectly formed and positioned in a way that suggested intelligence and purpose. Luna's scientific training kicked in immediately. She had dreamed of this moment her entire life, but now that it was happening, she felt a mixture of excitement and terror. Her hands shook as she pulled out her scanner and took readings of the being. The bioelectric signature was definitely coming from this creature, but the readings were getting weaker by the minute. She knelt down beside the alien, trying to assess its condition. The being's chest was rising and falling very slowly, indicating it was still alive, but in serious trouble. Its skin felt cold to the touch, much colder than any living thing should be. Along its spine, Luna could see beautiful crystal formations that looked like they should be glowing, but they were dim and lifeless. Most concerning of all was the purple substance that had crystallized around what appeared to be wounds on the creature's body. Luna realized this must be the being's blood, frozen solid by the desert's brutal cold. She didn't need to be a doctor to understand that this alien was dying from exposure. For a moment, Luna stood frozen, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what she was seeing. This was the discovery that scientists had been hoping for since humans first looked up at the stars. But this wasn't how she had imagined it would happen. Instead of a triumphant moment of contact, she was witnessing the tragic death of an intelligent being far from home. Her medical training from her undergraduate years suddenly became relevant. Luna had studied biology before specializing in astronomy, and she knew that hypothermia was a serious threat to any living creature. This alien was clearly suffering from something similar. Its body temperature dropping to dangerous levels, Luna made a decision that would change both their lives forever. She couldn't just stand there and watch this magnificent creature die. Whatever this being was, wherever it came from, it deserved a chance to survive. She ran back to her jeep and grabbed every thermal blanket and heating pack she could find. Carefully, she wrapped the alien in the emergency blankets, trying to trap whatever body heat remained. The being was surprisingly light for its size, and Luna managed to lift it and carry it back to her vehicle. She placed the alien in the back seat, arranging the blankets to create a warm cocoon around its body, as she started the engine and began driving toward her research cabin. Luna glanced in the rearview mirror at her extraordinary passenger, had no idea what she was going to do next. But she knew one thing for certain. She couldn't let this incredible being die alone in the cold desert. Whatever happened next, she was committed to helping this alien survive. Even if it meant risking her career and her safety. The desert morning was getting warmer as Luna drove toward an uncertain future. Carrying the most important discovery in human history, sleeping peacefully in her back seat, Luna's research cabin sat alone in the desert, 50 miles from the nearest town. It was a simple building that she had converted into a makeshift laboratory, filled with computers, scientific equipment, and monitoring devices. She had chosen this remote location specifically because it allowed her to conduct her research without interference from curious neighbors or government officials. As she pulled up to the cabin with her extraordinary passenger, Luna's mind was racing with questions and concerns. She had never imagined she would need to provide medical care to an alien being, and she had no idea what she was doing. But she knew that doing something was better than doing nothing. And this magnificent creature deserved every chance to survive. She carefully carried Zarathal inside, her heart pounding with both excitement and fear. The alien was still wrapped in thermal blankets, but Luna could feel how cold the being's body remained, despite her efforts to warm it up during the drive. She quickly cleared off her main workbench and gently placed the Queen Mother on the padded surface. Under the bright lights of her laboratory, Luna got her first really good look at the alien. The being was even more beautiful than she had realized in the desert. Its skin had an almost pearl-like quality, and she could see intricate patterns of what looked like veins of light running throughout its body. The 6 arms were perfectly proportioned, each ending in graceful hands with long, delicate fingers. But Luna could also see how serious the creature's condition was. The crystal formations along its spine were completely dark, like windows in an abandoned building. The purple blood around its wounds had turned almost black, and the being's breathing was so shallow that Luna had to watch carefully to make sure it was still alive. She immediately went to work, creating a better environment for her patient. Luna gathered every space heater she owned and arranged them around the workbench, trying to raise the temperature in the immediate area. She also set up several humidifiers, guessing that the alien might need more moisture in the air than what the dry desert provided. As the hours passed, Luna watched for any sign of improvement. She had no medical training for this kind of situation, but she used her knowledge of biology and physiology to make educated guesses about what might help. She gently cleaned the wounds with warm water and applied antibiotic ointment, hoping it wouldn't cause any harmful reactions. On the second day, something amazing happened. Luna was checking on her patient when she noticed the alien's eyes beginning to flutter open. They were unlike any eyes she had ever seen, large and multifaceted, like jewels that seemed to contain entire galaxies. For a moment, Luna was so mesmerized by their beauty that she forgot to breathe. Then something even more incredible occurred. Images began flashing through Luna's mind, not her own thoughts, but visions from somewhere else entirely. She saw a world of incredible beauty, with crystal forests that sang in the wind and warm oceans that glowed with bioluminescent life. She saw beings like her patient, graceful and elegant, moving through this paradise with purpose and joy. Most powerfully, she saw children, dozens of young aliens who looked like smaller versions of the being on her workbench. They were playing, learning, and exploring their world with the innocent curiosity that all children possess, regardless of their species. Luna somehow understood that these were the aliens' offspring, and that they were waiting for their mother to return home. The mental connection lasted only a few moments, but it changed everything. Luna now understood that she wasn't just helping an injured alien. She was helping a mother who desperately needed to get back to her children. The responsibility felt overwhelming, but it also filled Luna with determination to do whatever it took to help this being recover. Over the following days, Luna developed a routine of care for her patient. She monitored the alien's vital signs using modified versions of her scientific equipment, adjusted the temperature and humidity levels, and tried different approaches to nutrition. She discovered that the being seemed to respond well to certain minerals, particularly those with crystalline structures similar to the formations on its spine. Luna spent hours sitting beside the workbench, talking to the alien even though she wasn't sure if it could understand her. She told stories about Earth, about human civilization, and about her own life and dreams. Sometimes she would play soft music, hoping it might be comforting to a being from another world. Gradually, the alien began to show signs of improvement. The crystal formations along its spine started to emit a faint glow, like stars beginning to shine at twilight. The purple blood around its wounds began to look more liquid and less frozen. Most importantly, the being's breathing became stronger and more regular. During the third week, Luna experienced another telepathic connection with her patient. This time, the images were clearer and more detailed. She saw the alien's homeworld, Kepler for to be, in all its glory. She witnessed the daily life of the aliens' people, their advanced technology that seemed to blend seamlessly with nature, and their deep reverence for life in all its forms. But she also saw the crash, experienced from the aliens' perspective. She felt the terror and pain of the bioship's death, the agony of being stranded on a hostile world, and the despair of thinking she might never see her children again. Luna found herself crying as she shared these emotions, understanding for the first time just how traumatic this experience had been for the being she was caring for. Through these mental connections, Luna began to understand that her patient was not just any alien, but a queen mother, a leader responsible for the welfare of her people. She was someone of great importance on her world, someone whose absence would be deeply felt by hundreds of beings who depended on her wisdom and care. This knowledge made Luna even more determined to help her patient recover fully. She worked tirelessly to improve the alien's environment, to understand her needs, and to provide the best care possible. What had started as a scientific discovery had become something much more personal, a mission to reunite a mother with her children, no matter how far away they might be. 6 weeks had passed since Luna found Zerothal in the desert, and the alien Queen Mother had made a remarkable recovery. The crystal formations along her spine now glowed with steady, beautiful light, and her skin had regained its natural luminescence. Most importantly, she was able to move around the cabin on her own, her 6 arms working together with the grace and coordination that was natural to her species. During these weeks, Luna and Zerothal had developed an extraordinary friendship that transcended the boundaries of species and language. Through their telepathic connections, they had learned to communicate with increasing clarity, sharing not just words but emotions, memories, and complex ideas that would have been impossible to express through speech alone. Luna discovered that, despite coming from completely different worlds, she and Zerothal shared many of the same values. Both were deeply curious about the universe and passionate about protecting life in all its forms. Both understood the powerful bond between a mother and her children, and both believed that knowledge should be used to help others rather than to cause harm. Zerothal had been amazed to learn about human civilization through Luna's memories and stories. She saw images of Earth's great cities, its diverse cultures, and its incredible variety of life forms. But she was most impressed by Luna's own story, how she had dedicated her life to searching for signs of intelligent life in the universe, and how she had risked everything to save a dying alien in the desert. In return, Zerothal shared knowledge of her own people's advanced technology. She showed Luna mental images of bioships that could travel between stars, crystal computers that processed information using living light, and healing techniques that could repair almost any injury. Most fascinating of all were the sustainable energy systems that her people had developed, which worked in harmony with nature rather than destroying it. But as grateful as Zerothal was for Luna's care, she knew she needed to find a way home to her children. Every day that passed meant another day of worry and uncertainty for the young ones who depended on her. Through their telepathic bond, Luna could feel the Queen Mother's deep longing to return to her family. She was determined to help make that possible. The solution came when Zerothal remembered that pieces of her bioship might still contain functioning communication components. Together, they made several trips back to the crash site, carefully searching through the wreckage for any salvageable technology. It was heartbreaking for Zerothal to see the remains of her faithful ship, but she knew that its sacrifice might be the key to getting home. Working together, they managed to recover several organic circuits and what appeared to be part of the ship's quantum communication array. Back at the cabin, Luna used her own electronic equipment along with the alien technology to create a hybrid communication device. It was a strange combination of human engineering and alien biotechnology, but somehow it worked. The process of Building the communicator brought Luna and Zaruthal even closer together. They worked side by side for hours each day, with Zaruthal using her natural understanding of biotechnology while Luna contributed her knowledge of Earth-based electronics. Despite the language barrier, they developed an almost perfect working partnership, anticipating each other's needs and ideas. After many failed attempts and frustrating setbacks, they finally succeeded in sending a signal into space. The quantum encrypted message was designed to travel faster than light, carrying a distress call across the vast distances between Earth and Kepler 440b. All they could do now was wait and hope that someone would receive their cry for help. The response came sooner than they had dared to hope. Within just a few days, Zarathel's modified communicator began receiving return signals from her people. The messages were filled with relief and joy at learning that their Queen Mother was alive, but also with careful planning for a rescue mission that would need to avoid detection by Earth's governments and military. During the weeks that followed, while they waited for the rescue ship to arrive, Luna and Zarathal spent countless hours together sharing stories, knowledge, and dreams for the future. Zarathal told Luna about each of her children, describing their unique personalities and the special talents that made each one precious. Luna shared her own hopes of one day making peaceful contact between their species, and her dreams of learning more about the wonders of the universe as a token of their friendship. Zarathal created a special gift for Luna. Using her own bioelectric energy and materials from her ship, she crafted a small crystalline device that would allow them to maintain limited telepathic contact across the vast distances of space. The crystal was beautiful beyond description, seeming to contain swirling galaxies of light within its translucent structure. When the rescue ship finally arrived on a moonless night, both women felt a mixture of joy and sadness. Luna was happy that her friend would soon be reunited with her children, but she knew she would miss the extraordinary companionship they had shared. Zarathel was grateful beyond words for Luna's kindness, but leaving felt like saying goodbye to a sister. The rescue ship itself was unlike anything Luna had ever imagined. It appeared silently in the desert sky, its bioluminescent hull pulsing with gentle rhythms like a living heartbeat. When it landed, other beings like Zarathal emerged to greet their Queen Mother, their joy and relief visible in the brightening of their crystalline features. Before departing, Zarathel made a promise to Luna that would change the future of both their species. She pledged that the ethereal collective would work to protect Earth and its people, and that Luna's act of compassion had shown them that humans were worthy of friendship and respect. She promised that one day, when the time was right, their peoples would meet again under better circumstances. As the bioship rose silently into the star-filled sky, Luna stood alone in the desert, holding the crystal communicator and feeling the first faint whispers of telepathic contact from her departing friend. She knew that her life would never be the same, and that she had been part of something that would echo through the ages. In the years that followed, Luna continued her research with new passion and purpose, guided by the knowledge that she was no longer searching for signs of alien life. She was preparing for the day when that life would choose to reveal itself to humanity. And sometimes, on quiet desert nights, she would hold the crystal close and share thoughts across the cosmos. With a Queen Mother who had become the most important friend she had ever known,